Welcome back. Our first interview tonight is with Patti Rhodes, filmmaker. Hey, Patti. Thanks for joining us. So you've got some really cool stuff coming up that we're going to talk about, but Can you start by maybe just telling us a little bit how you got involved, not just in like filmmaking, but like in specifically with music?
Yeah, filming music since I was probably a preteen and starting to play guitar and being interested in music at a really early age, I was playing instruments at 8 years old and stuff. And I love to watch music on film. I think one of the first music films I saw was Woodstock. And it's a brilliant film. And saw it on TV, and I just really kind of fell in love with how just that those people were there doing that. And then from there, as I got older and saw more and more, I actually started working at video stores when I was about 18. I started watching a lot of music documentaries. Rude Boy is one that comes to mind that I saw, in my teens, that I always went back to, just how that's structured with live stuff and with narrative stuff. And then I decided I was shooting photographs. I think I started shooting photographs when I was probably about 17, 18, seriously, where I was, really wanting to learn more about it. I took a couple of extension classes at U of M, the University of Minnesota, Duluth, because I'm from the Duluth area. And I wasn't ready to go into my 4-year college yet. And I started photographing bands. I started going to Minneapolis and going to basement shows and photographing bands. And over those few years between 18 and 21, I was just like, I want to write scripts. I want to be a filmmaker. I got to do this. And, and I figured out, I applied to MCAD and I got in. And I wanted to go into the film program right away. So I was, during that whole time, I was traveling, by myself sometimes to Minneapolis, from Duluth, from Superior, actually. To film bands and and mostly take pictures. So I got into MCAD. I packed up my car. I was 21 at that point. I started filming bands right away. I was just like, I'm gonna film tons of bands. I'm gonna make what I would have called then a video fanzine.
So I introduced you as a filmmaker. You also do like super cool photography.
Oh, cool.
Which I like, duh, why didn't I say that? Because I'm brilliant. Do you have like a preference of like, what do you, like, you do both things really, really well.
Oh, thanks.
What do you prefer?
I really like them both. But I feel like they kind of inform each other.
Okay.
In some ways. With photography, I really like to keep it, either I work on some experimental stuff. There's that's kind of what, like I said, was from kind of my coursework in school and in grad school. But when I film bands, when I take photos of bands, I really like to keep my style looking kind of old school and kind of straightforward.
Okay.
I know there are people in this town that shoot amazing, high def, beautiful, gorgeous images of rock and roll bands here. Mm-hmm. And I love all of that. And my style is a little bit more something that you'd find on a 7-inch or a 45 record in a dusty bin in 82 or something like that. Sure. Not that it has to look bad. It still has to look good. There's still people taking great pictures back then.
Yeah.
But I like to use film sometimes, or either that, or I like to make my digital look a little bit like it's film, a little more grit, a little more grain. And that's just kind of my style.
Do you have, when you're shooting footage, you've used like a variety of different like devices?
I do.
What do you have a preference?
I really like, my favorite thing to shoot is film, actual film. For ease of use, I shoot on Super 8 film. Mm-hmm. It has gotten to be really expensive to shoot on Super 8 film now. It's still doable if you kind of pace yourself. So for instance, 3-minute reel of Super 8 film to shoot is can be anywhere from $35 to $50 right now.
Oh my God.
And that's not that's not with processing. Processing on top of that would be another maybe 30. And then I love shooting in video and making, also, the ease of digital video these days. I shoot with my iPhone.
Yeah.
It's really good. It looks great.
Yeah.
And you can make it, look how you want it to look.
So you have, when we play for real, coming up at Cloudland, that screening, and this will air after that, but I know you've got more stuff coming up. And so can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of who the audience can expect to see?
Yeah.
And then kind of what's on the horizon after that?
Yeah, for sure. So When We Play for Real is the film or video, I should call it a video, that I put together throughout my undergraduate studies at MCAD. But like I said, I had pulled it out of, having it in class, because I wanted to really make it for the kids that were in it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to make it it wasn't like how maybe, Penelope Spheris made, Decline as almost like an anthropological study, as well as for the kids that were in it, right?
Yeah.
I wanted it to be about more like, you already know what punk rock is, but this is what we're doing with it, and it's for the people that are in it. It's only 52 minutes long. It's some really fun things. I went into the studio with the Murderers, went into the studio with Dillinger 4, so it would be at Terrarium. I think the Murderers was at Dave Gardner's studio here in town. And I went over to Extreme Noise, of course, and talked to volunteers there, and different record labels that were here. I interviewed people that own different record labels. Mm-hmm. Felix Havoc over Havoc Records, and then Profane Existence, the magazine that I remember picking up in Minneapolis when I was 17, and just sitting and trying, reading it in school when I was supposed to be reading something else. And so that was kind of a cool thing for me, is to be able to come back around and film them and interview them.
Yeah.
They were very gracious. And, I think the bands are really like, during that time, there were so many great bands. And I chose that time period because everybody was kind of saying, like, there's a real resurgence of punk rock right now. Right when I came to town to go to school, and people kept saying that. They're like, everybody's going to shows, older people, younger people. It's exciting again. I've heard different people from different age groups say that. And that was interesting to me, and that inspired something too.
What comes after that?
After that screening, I'm going to show a couple of trailers of this other thing that I started working on in late 90s. This thing, I went to New York to kind of, film some stuff. And what that film's about is there was kind of a rock and roll renaissance happening, where there were a lot of bands that were doing this really, really fast, revved up rock and roll that was kind of outside of things like psychobilly, and it was more like, so the bands like some of the Scandinavian bands like the Helicopters would be an example of that. Some people that I've filmed so far, there's a band called the Bell Rays, who are fantastic. The style was more like the Stooges or the MC5 or Motorhead, or, the kind of just like really big sounding bands,
over the head,
but in small clubs.
Gotcha.
And that was the appeal of it. I was just like, I got to start filming these bands. So I did that, and then I did not know what to do with it. So I was entering Cal Arts to go to graduate school for writing scripts and making films, and some other things. And I was just like, I just didn't want to bring that film into my coursework again. I just wanted to keep it like, this is it has its own audience, and I just wanted to kind of keep it sacred, you know? And so I kind of I put a lot of stuff in the can, and I've kept it with me through all these years. So I had moved to LA for 16 years. I came back here to Minneapolis in 2016. So now, as time has passed, I see all the holes. I see all the gaps. And that's driving me to dig it back out, do what I have to do to get something put together. But I need to, I'm going to have to, like in the next year, I'm going to have to do some traveling and some interviews, maybe some interviews on Zoom. I don't know.
Oh, sure. We can do that now, right?
Yeah, you know. I need to fill the gaps, and I think that's going to be a really, really cool film.
How about in terms of photography?
Yeah, I want to do an exhibition of photography. Hopefully at maybe a couple of venues. Cloudland is interested, and have a group show of photographers. And really the only criteria would be that the photograph was shot after 2020.
Oh, okay.
So that would be the only criteria. And I think what'll be interesting about that is, you know, if I did a call for artists for, you know, photographs, there are people that have been shooting in this scene for years, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is a whole other show, and that show I would love to do too, you know, like, I mean, that's huge.
Sure.
You know, and there really needs to be, I know there have been some solo shows, some really great photographers recently and everything, but I'd like to have it be, I mean, the bands can be whatever, but I'd really like to have it be current. You know, people playing currently. Sure. And I think that would be kind of an interesting exercise. I want to fill my life with creative work right now. Like sometimes we all do. I just got really sucked into the workforce, and I just, you know, you're in survival mode, and you're like, I'll do that later. I just have to figure this out. Mm-hmm. My only advice to everybody is to just try to do, even if it's a little bit, try to do something. If you're a creative person and you feel like you're losing it, or not losing it, let me rephrase that. If you feel like you're losing yourself or your creativity, I would say that's the time when you just try to even just do something once a week.
Yeah.
And think about your projects, and that they're waiting for you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Patti Rhodes, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you.
It was awesome.